we're going to put the strap on so that the laptop doesn't go flying in the event of a water landing. How was your day? Crazy? Busy?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
The average?
There's enough break between items.
Oh, good.
It didn't feel like nonstop.
That's good.
You just love yourself, don't you? I am liking this baby smiling.
This baby's cool, man. I'm into this baby.
Keep smiling. He's smiling at me, so I'm gonna smile at him.
All right, and then we'll get our lighting. Thanks, everybody. So do it in reverse, just like a convention. Yep, grab a bag and then find the match.
It's over there. It's over there. It's over there.
Yep,
Yeah.
there's that too. Jeff, just
like
go to
my
the end and
favorite
grab
age.
bags that don't have fruits
It's
on
like
top
7
and start.
months. It's like so fun. I love like between 6 and like 10 months. It's the best. Maybe a year. 6 months in.
All right, let's do it. So, Shadoworld. Ooh. Oh man, my head is totally cut off on the
Yes.
multi-stream. That's a shame.
Well, you could tilt this. Because you're kind of stuck. It's so tight.
Oh my goodness. Don't worry. Tomorrow after. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, fantastic. How's volume on everybody? Everyone good? Hey, Kane, what's up? What is up? How are you doing?
Yes.
All right. So this week, book 4 of the Color World series. We've been going in depth, deeper and deeper into the Color World. This is okay. This book is so different. First of all, from the first 3, but especially from number 3. What made this be your new thing that you would do in the Color World series?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
So
it's
you
a new book.
well, sure. So you said that you try to do something different every book. What was the thing that you tried to do with this book specifically? And did you do it? And did you set out to do it, or did you end up doing it?
Well, as I said earlier, there's not a lot of Gabe in this book. And Gabe and Wendy are kind of like on the outs really from the get-go. And you kind of get this idea that they're kind of not on the same page. So I wanted, authentic marital stress, right? And then also writing just a really mean character. Mike is a really mean, jerky character. So I think so. As I was saying earlier, maybe I didn't write him mean enough because a lot of people like Mike.
People love Mike.
But people like mean characters, I feel like, Yes.
Bakugo.
Yeah.
Vegeta.
All through, you're kind of not really sure what Mike's motivation is. You're like, well, he seems like he's helping her, but then he talks, and I'm not sure what's going on.
Then he talks.
It's kind of Wendy's take, too. So, yeah.
Okay, so did you set out to make people dislike Mike?
Yes.
Okay. You did a terrible job at that. People love
jerks.
There's actually people that are rooting for Mike against Gabe.
I know. I'm like, dude, she's married. Like, just stop.
Just stop.
Let's not break up a marriage. That's wrong.
What do you think for those people that are Team Mike? Like, why is it so acceptable for the people that are Team Mike? What do you think?
I think they imagine that Wendy's gonna leave Gabe for Mike, but she tells him that she loves him, Mike. She has feelings for Mike, but she's very practical about it, and she's very why wouldn't I? He's my brother-in-law. He took care of me. He looked after me. He got me from point A to point B. Put his life on the line for me. Why would you not love somebody who does that for you? Really, the person who suffers the most in that is Mike, right? Because he's a single guy, and Gabe is his brother, and there's just kind of a, you know, problematic love triangle thing going on there. So the heartbreaking, to me, it's more heartbreaking than anything. It's just hard to watch, I guess.
So for you, so what's more heartbreaking, book 4 or book 3?
Yeah, there's a lot of heartbreak in book 5, and then, really book 5 is like, but then you get redemption in book 5. You kind of get to some closure. Book 4.
Isn't book 4 like King of the Heartbreak Hill?
No. Well, yes, for a different reason though, not like relationships. No.
Well, sure, but for
everybody dies.
So I thought
everybody dies.
I thought you cried when you wrote it.
I did for that, yeah. But I also, you know, felt really sad when other things happened too. So it's just crying because, you know, we had to say goodbye to somebody. Not like this is gonna change, you know, this is hard. Like there's like mourning someone's death, right? Who was an inspiration, who was a wonderful person, who changed your life, right? There's mourning that kind of person. Then there's mourning what could have been, you know? And with the character who dies in Shadoworld, I think it's mourning this person that was a pillar in Wendy's life. But the other things that are sad that happen, you know, in book 3, in book 4, and book 5, like those are like hard life things. Like, how are we going to get through this? What's this going to look like? You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you, in terms of what you sit down to think about before it happens, and Fiore, welcome in. You are the best. Can't wait to see you out there somewhere in America this year, Fiore. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Do you kind of, what sort? Oh, that's the North Dakota. All right, give us a sec. I'm gonna come out and come back in so you can hear us. Okay, let me know if you can hear us now. Hey, Francisco, welcome in, Francisco. Let me know. Make sure everybody can hear us. Okay, do you have any sort of checklist in terms of these are the literary things? Like, how much of your life as a writer, as an author, goes into, like, are there certain things that you want to accomplish each book or any of the books? Like, how much of that is available? No, you just sit down, put your hands on the keyboard, and go.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you feel like other authors like hate you for that?
I don't think so. I think a lot of authors have that same experience, to be honest.
Just sit down and write. So all this idea of like plot points and mapping things out, and
I don't think a lot of authors do that.
Okay, so more authors write like.
I mean, I know authors who write, like, I write things linearly, timeline wise, like, oh, this happened and then this happened and this happened. I know authors that write scenes like all through the book, and then they write the things that connect those things, which I think is a weird way to write, but it works for them.
Interesting. Who do you know anyone personally that writes like that?
Well, yeah, I had people in like my creative writing class, or you know, writing groups and that kind of thing.
Interesting. I guess it makes sense. Well, especially if you're a spoiler person, you know, lots of people are kind of on the both sides of this. You know, some people like don't care, and I want to see how you get there, and then some people are like, no, don't tell me anything. I want the whole thing blind. Mm-hmm. But if you're a person that doesn't care about spoilers, then right, like you said, the fun is in how do you get there, and so you could write the scenes and then figure out how to move from.
I don't know how much they change the scene once they get to it again. Like, they write a scene and then they write the
timeline
leading up to it. Like, do they change it a lot? You know, I don't know if they do or not. I'm not acquainted with the intimate processes of other writers. I just know that's a thing, and I was like, ooh, that's weird.
How do you know when to publish? Hey, Super Dimension, welcome back.
Just when it feels like there's some sort of closure. So every book has to have some sort of character development. So I'm always looking for, what is this? Yeah, they do. But
what? Not only do they have bookstores, but some of the people's favorite places on earth are bookstores.
Yeah, and what's that bookstore we went to in LA?
Is it the Lost Bookstore or the Last Bookstore?
The Last Bookstore.
The Last Bookstore in Los
like
Angeles.
A whole experience.
Oh man,
it's really cool.
It's an incredible place to go if you get a chance.
Go look up 10 coolest libraries in the world, and then go visit those places.
Libraries or bookstores?
Or bookstores and libraries. There are cool libraries too.
There
I want to go to Library of Congress one day. I think that'd be really cool. What was I saying?
So we were talking about how do you know when to wrap a book?
Yeah. So every book has to have some conflict with the character. The main character has to be going through some sort, and there has to be some resolution to that conflict. So that's how I know the book is, once I feel like the character has arrived at a certain place, I'll start thinking about where the end is. There have been times where I'm like, is this the end? No. Is this the end? No. Like Soraya. I was that way with Soraya. Figuring out the ending of Soraya was so hard. I was like, is this the end? No. And when I finally figured out the end, I was like, holy crap, that really happened? Ooh, what? Am I sure I want this to be the story? Do I want this cliffhanger? Really? So sometimes the ending is hard because I fight against it. Whatever it is that's supposed to happen, and I'm like, no.
Is that how you know? How many times do you have that experience versus?
Oh, sure, because there's only a million things that you could write that are scandalous, right? That would make a story juicy, and you don't want to fall into that pit of trying to write something scandalous to suck people in just because of the shock value, right? I feel like they did that with Lost.
Oh, really?
Lost, where they're like, and here's another crazy thing that happened, and then here's another crazy thing that happened, and I remember this gal giving a talk about loss at church. She used loss as to the basis of her talk in church, and what she said and I don't even know what her talk was about, but I remember her saying me and my husband watched the show Lost, and all through the show you're just surely this is going to make sense. Somehow this is all just going to make sense. But then you get to the end of it and you're like,
I don't think it did, right?
No, it didn't. You're just what? Huh? No, where's the resolution, the neat bow? Where's the explanation for everything? She's like, I just tell people, you just have to remember, it's magic. Okay? It's just all magic.
That was the person who wrote Lost?
No, this is the person who watched Lost,
okay,
who had invested so much time in watching it, because what was it, 8 seasons or something?
We watched the first 3, I feel like.
Yeah, and then I was like, no.
What's up, Kevin?
You can only open up so many cans of worms before
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's got me.
What's up, LJ?
He likes grabbing heavy. So
I know.
Yeah, you can only open up so many cans of worms before people are like, well, this is a bit much right now for me to process. And I feel like Lost was that way. So I try not to open up too many cans of worms in one book. But I do want the main character to arrive somewhere.
So is there a limit of cans of worms? How do you know when you've...
Oh, just when I start to feel overwhelmed, ooh, this is a lot for one person to handle.
You're
and also have to be able to make it all make sense. I can't just open up a can of worms and have no intention of ever addressing it again, feeding it to the fishes. If I'm not going to feed it to the fishes, I'm wasting a can of worms, and then everybody's going to be like, well, wait, a can of worms over there.
Can of worms, no top on it.
Nobody's
with
a can of worms, and the worms are getting out, and they're infesting the story, and they eat it, holes in it, and holes are everywhere, and there you go.
So how do you look at your life compared to how you write? How much of your writing carries over? Do you ever in your personal life, you're like, nope, too many cans already open. Not dealing with this can of worms.
I'm not sure. How does one open a can of worms in there?
I don't know. Well, you clearly can do it in a book.
Well, yeah, because I control everything.
David, thank you. We're live every Tuesday for Book Talk Tuesday. David, I appreciate you coming in. We we're not live for a long time, and then life got insane, and we did like 40 conventions in 6 months last year, and it was just garbanzo nuts. And Rachel, will you show off the one that's due out next week?
Oh yeah. Here's.
So
here, I'll do this, and then I'll go.
Coming out on the 14th, and so David, we decided to just kind of lead up into the release of the new book by doing a book talk Tuesday. And so yeah, each week we talk about a new book, and we talk about the writing process, and we talk about the characters, and we talk about all things bookish. So it gives us an excuse to like be live and see people, and Yovel usually joins us.
He just does this the whole time.
Yep. Just looks around, checks out all the different things. Uh-oh, grabs hair.
Yep.
Yeah. Super Dimension, let me know if you have a question. I see you said take your time, but I feel like I missed the question. So let me know.
Okay.
All right. So in your personal life, do you ever get to that where you're like, nope, too many cans open? Do you like that has to apply because somehow you know when too much is too much.
I guess when it's not realistic anymore.
When your life is unrealistic, you're just like,
when
nope.
the character's life is unrealistic. So I have a life, and so kind of like what's realistic. Although my life is pretty crazy at times, it seems very unrealistic. But
well, that's what I'm saying. Do you ever say to yourself like, if I was in my book, I would have stopped by
now? No, because the wonderful thing about books is that things happen more quickly. In real life, they take a long time. Things are like there's a lot of like boring filler stuff in real life. There's getting up in the morning, and there's doing this, making breakfast, and there's eating, and then there's going to the grocery store,
So do you ever
folding the laundry, and like all of these super boring things that
Okay.
you never have to even think about in a book. Like, thank heavens.
So you're saying that those kind of mundane are like speed bumps to your cans of worms?
So. I think so. Yeah, because you don't have to like kind of like I can worry about. That's one of the great things about kids is when your life is in an upheaval and there's all of this other extemporaneous stuff happening where there's these big decisions. You're like, I can't deal with this right now. But I can deal with you. You're hungry. I'm going to feed you and then feel accomplished about myself. Like, or I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to protect you. Or like they kind of like bring in all of the like stress and anxiety to like this very simple problem that can be solved very easily.
So how come there are no speed bumps in literature then? Or do you introduce?
Well, because it's boring. Nobody wants to read that.
Okay.
But I think at times there are. In some ways there are. Like humor, for example. That's one of the things I use is if I feel like things are just really serious, I'll introduce a scene with like some humor in it, just so that the reader can like breathe for a second.
Yeah, breathe.
But a reader doesn't want to read about folding laundry unless it's funny. So you can make folding laundry funny.
Then it's eligible.
Yeah. So trying to find a way for like regular boring life to be interesting in a book.
So then what do you do when it gets converted to like a TV or movie?
Then you can do a montage.
Oh.
And here she is folding laundry.
You're like, gets up, gets breakfast, empties dishwasher, folds on. You're like,
well, yeah, like when they do those montages where they show someone's life and they just show quick cut scenes of like the same things happening over and over. Like when someone's trying to like work out and get good at like throwing a sword or something, they're like, and they put it, and then they show
training
the
montage.
Training montage, and it might include them eating breakfast, getting up at the same hour every day, But usually the montages are funny. They're usually like they try to make them funny.
Oh, I wonder if we could do something. I'm gonna have to think about that. If there's a way to do a new spin on.
Well,
montage.
I did do a montage in Ezra's book where I basically progressed the book a week by having him introduced to each of the 7 sisters.
Yes.
And so you realize that the time is passing and he's doing the same things but with different people. And so that was a way to like show a progression of time.
Well, that's clever.
Yeah. So that was something that I did montage.
So were you intentional about, because 7 sisters means 7 weeks?
No, 1 per day. There was a new one every day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's only a week. Is a week a long time in a book? How do you judge?
It depends. I mean, sometimes, you know, you can do a time skip where it's like, and weeks later, like Little World is kind of like that, where they're saving people and they're traveling. You don't really get like the day by day, play by play. You just have, okay, they're going on this journey. Here's how it happened, the first person they met with, and then here's several weeks later after they've met with a bunch of people, and here's how many people they helped. Like, then you know, well, this is what they've been, especially if you know that it's like a repetitive thing that they're doing, you can just say like, here's what the repetitive thing looks like, and then, okay, time skip. Now we're weeks later, and this is what we, you know, this is what we did.
How do you know that you need, like, how do you use the passage of time? Do you ever like say to yourself, oh my gosh, I really need, in order for this to be realistic, I'm going to need time to pass? Like, how do you use the passage of time?
Just whenever the story calls for it. You know, if you need a character to accomplish something or go through something, but you don't want to give the gruesome details because the details can be boring. Or if you need to do like a flashback, you're like, I have like sometimes in my stories where I'm like, okay, this scene has to happen, but it's really like the only scene that matters, and then we have now, and somehow I need to let people know what this one pivotal thing that happened, so you can do a flashback, or you do a prologue, so you can put that one thing in the prologue as like, hey, this is this really important thing. Another thing I did in Ezra, I did a prologue like that where I did a flashback to before the person dies in book 4, right before book 4. So the prologue of Waterworld Ezra happens
Shadoworld.
During Shadoworld. Yeah. Okay. Do you? Let me see if I can get him on the other side. You can
yeah.
Give me some.
Oh.
Some privacy.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. We're going to interrupt this to see if we can give... Rachel's going to get situated and see if Yovel can nurse on the other side. John, have they ever done anything with the Demon Slayer English dub season 2? I feel like we've all been waiting for the season 2 of Demon Slayer forever and a day. That Mugen, like, all we've gotten is just more Mugen Train with like maybe one extra episode. Ken, welcome in. LJ, thank you. Kathy, hope you're doing well. Yo, Nick, what up? Hork, what up? Welcome in, everyone. We're talking. You ready to go?
I think so.
All right. We're going to get this put back together.
Just full disclaimer. If he kicks the blanket off and everybody sees my boob, it's okay.
We're gonna get some kind of strike on YouTube.
Yeah.
Some
I'm gonna do my best though.
Nudity strike on YouTube. Oh.
And then we can all like protest because it's, you know,
breastfeeding mothers.
Yeah.
Discriminatory. Oh my gosh. I need to just move this box.
Or this table.
Well, this table's gonna get taken down. It's all gonna come down as we pack up everything. You did get all your Like a Boss already, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So today, for those who are just joining in, is Shadoworld Book 4. Man, I'll tell you what. Camera on the phone is superior to camera on the laptop. You really have to get in there on the laptop.
I mean, the cover is dark, but it's not that dark.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, look on the phone. It's just way better. All right. So you go until you just question yourself. Is this the end?
Yeah, I'm like, has the character resolved whatever the big thing is? Right? Is there some sort of resolution that's going to give people like closure? You know, Charlotte's one of those that I was like a little iffy on the ending, where I was like, I feel like it's done, but I don't know if Charlotte's done. You know, like her part of the story is done, but
But you're
Charlotte
like-
as a character, it's like she might still have some.
Did you get attached? Were you like,
He's
oh
like-
no, this
he's like-
person that I thought was going to be
He's like, no.
terribly boring is now like, I need to help her.
No, they-
I was like, this character's boring. I don't want to talk to her anymore.
Oh, really?
Like, I'm done with her. Like, being,
Martin Chestak comes in.
yeah. I don't know. He's gonna write the next book of Charlotte with Judy. Just all Judy, all day.
Oh, really? So you enjoy Judy quite a bit?
Oh yeah, when that's why Judy went everywhere with her, because it's like, gotta bring Judy, because
You're like, I can't get through the scene unless.
Well, plus they go to New York, and I'm like, Charlotte won't last in New York. She can't go to New York.
You have to go with somebody,
Yeah, you can't
don't
go
you
by
think?
yourself. Yeah, I mean, or at least somebody with a little more like who doesn't mind talking to people. Getting instruction, help from people.
I feel like New York is one of those things where like somebody has to show you. A friend has to be like, I've been to New York. You
I
can
don't
come with
know.
me.
Yes, maybe. I mean, but even when we had the first time we went, we had a friend show us.
Nick.
Yeah, I don't think I like retained anything, because I still to this day when I go to New York, I can't ever end up on subway going the right direction.
Oh, really?
I'm like downtown, uptown. Whoa.
Yeah.
Which one is it? I think I know, and then I get on and I end up going the opposite direction I wanted to
Downtown.
go.
Remember,
And then you get off and you're like, well, how do I get on going the other way? And you're like,
what? As long as you don't leave the platform, you can keep riding the subway. You just
For sure.
can't. You can't leave the platform. If you do, then you have to pay again.
yeah.
I'm not into paying again because that's the whole reason we took the subway to begin with. What's up, Catherine? Yep. 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 Yep.
You know,
Okay. So
it's under the loop.
you go until you have a resolution, or you're done with the character, and you want their story to end. So then, do you use the epilogue as your like? You're gonna open up a little bit of a can of worms.
Well, there's not always an epilogue.
What?
Sometimes there is. Not always. Though.
You're saying not every book has an epilogue?
Not every book, no. Waterworld particularly. I'm trying to think of. Shadoworld does. Does Colorado? I didn't say Colorado.
Epilogue in Shadoworld.
Okay.
I feel like they all have an epilogue. Is that a cheater though? It feels like a cheater move, right? To epilogue at the end of each book.
Well,
Epilogue in
like-
Shadoworld,
I don't like ending a book on a cliffhanger.
right?
Okay, Dreamworld has
Epilogue.
I love and yeah, that one's cool. That's
the
a good epilogue. I don't like ending the book
book.
on a cliffhanger because I feel like it's like saying that the book's not really done. So I'll write an epilogue because then it's like a disclaimer. It's like I did end this book,
Ooh.
but there is more.
Ooh,
And
interesting.
here's a little teaser. It's more like a teaser thing.
Okay. Some marketing now, but do you do it as marketing, or you like? But what I really wanted to end on with, like, what role does the epilogue play for you? Why do you do it as a writer?
Well, because I want people to be excited about what's coming.
Okay.
Also, it kind of forces me to pick another story, pick the next story.
Oh.
You know, like with Dreamworld, for example. Like that's when I knew that the next book was going to be Ezra's point of view because the epilogue is from Ezra's point of view. Like I wrote the epilogue, I was like, well, this is interesting. So this is from Ezra's, and when I wrote it, I hadn't thought I'm going to write a whole book with Ezra. When I wrote the epilogue, I was like, well, this should be fun. And so then I wrote a book with Ezra's point of view. But yeah, it helps me kind of narrow down and commit to like what the next part of the story is going to be.
Well, there's
So Waterworld doesn't have any epilogues.
Oh, in any of them?
No,
Oh man, I guess there wouldn't really be.
because they're their own story.
Yeah, other than just like
Because they're-
literally pulling
they're
chapter
different
one of.
characters. Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. Why did they put so many blank pages at the end of that one?
They'll automatically put blank pages on the end. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
I put one blank page, and then because that's required, and then they add extra ones.
So interesting to see the. I guess I usually read the ebook, So I don't recognize
You
the.
don't get to see any of the cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
graphics.
Who did
Well, you
the
should see so all of the water worlds are getting a
refresh?
refresh. And if you pull up Soraya, that's the first one that's had here. Open Soraya to one of the
Interesting. So
chapters.
did you go back and do this, or you already knew you
No,
were?
I already knew.
Oh man, that's cool.
So that's kind of the version of the epilogue with Waterworld is picking the character that's going to be in the next book. So open to one of the chapter headings.
Okay.
There you go. So that's Bea's art. Bea drew the birds, which is really cool. So each of the Waterworld books will have something like that.
Ooh, so does that mean we get to give away? Okay. Oh man, that's so like Lord of the Rings, right? Don't you feel like that font is like super Lord of the Ringsy?
No.
I don't know. That's and maybe Rowan and Rohan,
Yeah, Rowan might sound a little like
Rohan,
Celtic, maybe.
which is the Lord of the Rings kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then oh duh. Okay. I was like, no, it's 6. Yeah, but then got it. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I love that you already put like that it's a book in the series in this.
Well, then they know what to look for next.
Yes. You have all these
I like as a reader knowing what's been and what's coming.
Okay.
And having it in order and knowing what order the books are in. And be very clear because
Is this the first time you've done that though?
I think I did it. No, it's not the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
On all these stuffs are just stuffs. Stuff isn't a word. Stuff doesn't have an S
Not
on
in
it.
Dreamworld.
Angela,
It would be
welcome
the
in.
Waterworld. Because Waterworld got complicated because of all the volumes, and so I started adding it because I was like,
Oh, you want
I want people
to
to
know
like where the volumes fall in the series.
Well, it's not in Ezra. So...
Well, it is in the Ezra revamp.
Oh.
So I haven't published
Okay.
the revamp yet. There you go, in Charlotte.
Yeah, I was looking. Okay, and then so it's probably in. Interesting. And how come these aren't part of the audio or the audiobook, the ebook?
I just haven't done the revamp on those.
Okay.
And when I do the ebook, it's like super straightforward, no graphics. Although this is the first book, Soraya is the first book. There will be graphics in the ebook.
What made you choose to?
Because it's the whole process, like figuring how to get graphics to show up correctly on an ebook is actually quite difficult because of the way that the text runs in an ebook.
So in Xavier, just so you know, the list of books is not present. But I'll tell you what, you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we know people do, and so these are spectacular. They look spectacular. Really good looking books. Man, all right. I'm probably just gonna steal. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a pre-release.
The Lord of the Rings.
That's funny. You see, Neri? If I do an anime convention in another state, will you just show up if I give you a booth? That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna have to get back to Neri. Yeah, I think. Don't you think, Dave? It looks like the font is very.
You could search it using your phone. I don't know how you're gonna search it.
Well, yeah, I can't really search right now. Neri is the one that we just did the big order for today for one of his clients that has a signing. Yeah, I mean, don't you think that looks like a very Lord of the Rings font, David? I mean, I think so. It looks like or maybe like a wizard font.
You're a wizard.
I don't know about Harry Potter specifically, but
I think we have to talk to you about Harry Potter. You want to lay him on the phone?
yeah, totally. We can totally do that. So that's funny. I said the word convention, and then Neri texted us about going to an anime convention. All right. I wonder why he wants the booth. That's an interesting, like, for an agent. Why does an agent want to have a booth? Oh.
Maybe he runs a convention or he knows somebody that runs.
Well, maybe he was just sad that we didn't have all of our stuff with us, and he's like, I could have used this, this, and this. I don't know. It'd be interesting. We'll find that out later.
One Piece dub. Haven't you finished One Piece?
No, I have not finished the One Piece dub. I'm probably 700 on the One Piece dub.
That's so many episodes, y'all.
Yeah, but it's over years. Like, I met Colleen, like, what, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And I've been watching One Piece for...
That's like an American anime. For an anime
An American anime? What do you mean?
Well, because in America, if people like something, we have to, like, run it in perpetuity, like, forever. It
like
can
The
never
Simpsons.
end. Yeah, never. It can never end. Whereas I feel like anime is really good at just, like, ending a series. Like, I know you love this, but it's over.
But it's over. Well, yeah, but then they do things like Boruto.
Oh, sure, which is fine. It's a totally separate story. But then you don't have to feel like you have to, you know. But if it's like all one continuous series,
You think people feel that way about The Simpsons? I don't know. Does it? Who's
well, The
still
Simpsons,
watching
you can
The
watch.
Simpsons?
You can watch any episode of The Simpsons and know what's going on. You can't, like.
You don't think that's true of One Piece?
Maybe because I've done that. I've watched like episodes in throughout, and
I think so. Okay.
Shadoworld.
How do you, in terms of taking Mike forward, do you feel differently now that like your plan to make everyone hate Mike failed? Have you changed how you see Mike, or do you still see him in the same way and you're like, I don't get these people?
Oh, well, no. I mean, Mike has his, you know, redemption in the end. He kind of figures things out. Like, Mike has his own character development, and at the end of the book, I think there's resolution there for him, and so then he can not be a jerk anymore. So he's not really a jerk, you know. He's not really a jerk as, you know, human being. He just has that as a defense. So
is everyone that way, or are some people just truly just a jerk, or is every jerk just deflecting?
probably.
Okay. Is there a way to be nicer to jerks? How do you interact with somebody like Mike?
Well, I think the way to get jerks to be less jerky is to be vulnerable with them. So if they are a jerk, it's hard for someone to be a jerk if you're like bearing your soul, you know, or you're being vulnerable. Like, what are they gonna do? You know, if they really are a jerk, then they'll just be a jerk, and then you'll know. But if you want to know if they're actually a jerk, then you just bare your soul, and then. Although Wendy does a few times, and Mike is still a jerk to her, but then like later on, he's still like saving her life and stuff. So his actions and his words don't line up.
Do you have any inspiration for Mike? I mean, to me, he's so much like a Gagio, Bakugo, Vegeta, lovable jerk face. So capable too. Like, for whatever reason, that jerk character is like, you know, Bakugo was pretty unstoppable. Nobody really.
I wrote Shadoworld way before I ever watched anime. Certainly not any anime.
So, do you have any influence? Like, how do you get so close to like a very typical anime character without having any of the backstory? Like, what are you drawing on to create? Because it's a really loved archetype, but you're writing it with no, like, you have nothing to know.
I guess just people I know. I'm trying to think. So, I'm sure there were inspirations, but
I mean, do you ever watch a My Hero or a Fairy Tail and be like, that's my character?
Well, there is one person, but I'd rather not say who. I'd rather not say who it is.
But in terms of going back and seeing other media, like, are you the chicken or the egg?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I was like, oh my gosh, hey, look, this anime has my character in it. I don't remember having that experience. But I'm sure there's shows that I've seen in which there are jerks. It's not just an anime thing.
Do we get that sort of? I mean, is he the typical bad boy, or is there something different about Mike that puts, with the idea of the bad boy that's not good for you, that the crowd roots for the girl to be with anyway?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear in the book that every time Mike, he's trying to get under Wendy's skin. So he's like saying everything he can to try to upset her. And then when she kind of figures out what he's doing, and she resists, and she holds her tongue, and she just keeps moving forward. And then when he realizes his tactic isn't working, he tries a new tactic of being a jerk. He tries a new way of getting under her skin. And then when she figures that out, like that's his whole frustration, is he gets so mad that she just won't like hate him. And that's what he really wants, is her to just like hate him and them to just not
because
talk.
then it would give him the excuse, right? Like what he's looking for is an excuse, but he just can't get it because she keeps...
he wants to not like her. He wants to hate her as much as his words indicate, and he just can't do it because she just won't hate him. So that's Mike's.
Well, because she's better than he thinks she is.
Yeah, well, I'd hoped that, he could just not like her.
So really, like in Teleworld, he's really like, this is all stupid. You are stupid. You and Gabe are stupid. You're a stupid person.
And World,
yeah.
in there as well.
And so he's hoping that he can prove that he was right instead of facing the fact that he's been wrong for 3 books.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he has reasons. I mean, Mike works for the guild, and his whole job description has been find Wendy and get her so that she can be used by the guild.
So he
has an ulterior motive. So, because she is married to his brother, right? He's got this conflict of interest, right? He wants to do his job. He's a duty guy. Like that's how he identifies, is like doing his duty. And when she kind of like makes herself likable and gets in the way of his duty, this one thing that he identifies as separate from Gabe and his family, he gets really mad about that, and feels threatened by the fact that it seems like he can't escape her familial connection with him. He can't just do his job.
So does she ever? They threaten to take him off the case because?
No, because he is the most likely means of getting to her.
Okay.
They know that Robert is protecting her, and they have no way of getting in except through Mike.
Well, it'd be pretty hard not to have a gigantic ego if you're Mike then, right?
I mean, he has, takes his shirt off a few times. I love that scene where she's like, do you always have to take your shirt off? Like, is that a thing? Like, if you need like a shot to your self-esteem, like just let me know, And he's like, well, why does it offend you if my shirt's off? I'm proud of my physique. And she's like, yeah, more like prideful. And he's like, well, if you had a nice car, you wouldn't tell somebody to put it in the garage, would you? So,
man.
Some fun interactions with those two.
How?
So there is a little bit of like a flirtiness to the jerkiness.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, because if she can, isn't that one of the acceptable ways to break her, is to get her to cheat on her brother? I would think that would be completely acceptable to Mike as proof enough.
Oh, I mean, I know, because Mike really doesn't want to hurt Gabe. Really doesn't want to hurt Gabe. So Mike doesn't have any intention of.
That's a really tough way to.
Well, they're connected. Remember, Mike and Gabe are connected.
I get it, but if you take a man's wife, I don't know how you think it doesn't impact the man.
Well, yeah, that's why Mike doesn't do anything, because he's like, if he does something to hurt his brother, it hurts him. Like on more of a level, on a deeper level than just like someone who's just, hey, you hurt me, you hurt my brother. Like, this is like he literally gets hurt. I mean, he's
Like the G.I. Joe, like the Zartan twins in G.I. Joe.
I've never seen G.I. Joe. So
What?
I do not know what you're talking
You've
about.
never seen G.I. Joe. Oh, what's up? What's up, buddy?
You gotta give him something to chew on.
Something to chew on. What? Let me.
I don't know.
Mom says I gotta look for something else for you to chew on. Look for something else for you to chew on.
Yeah.
Man, that's really gonna knock me off my.
Okay, so you're asking. Okay, so he definitely wants to maintain a distance from her, because he wants to hate her, because he wants to just get his job done and move on with his life. And she's not making it very easy. In fact, she even says, like, why do you have to like make it so that people like you? Like, why do I have to like you? This is so irritating. And
She's a likable character.
she's pretty funny. She's witty.
Well, she's so capable.
Thanks.
And at what point do you give yourself permission to take Wendy's handcuffs off? I feel like for several books, people's complaint is that Wendy is just like a big giant whiner, and like, why do we have to see so much personal development from this woman? At what point do you give Wendy permission to really kind of make the leaps forward that we see in?
Oh, you'll see that in you do kind of see that through Waterworld in the small parts that you see of her. You definitely can tell that she's
big time in Waterworld.
That she's like taking control, and she's confident now, and she knows what she's after. At least she seems like she does. So definitely in Waterworld, and you see that at the end of Dreamworld, that she kind of has that moment where she's like, "I am woman," and like has like a epic moment of like, I'm ready to do this kind of thing. There is a moment in Shadowworld where Mike does try to like outright flirt with her, and in order to make her dislike him, like, oh, you're willing to do this for your brother, like in front of your brother, whatever, like he does try that tactic at the end, and she sees right through it. So at that point she's figured him out, and she's like, yeah, I don't think so, dude. I know what you're doing. Don't even.
So you're saying at no point is there, I mean, you keep presenting it as, well, Wendy's got him figured out and she just keeps decoding his tactics, but you're saying there's no part of Wendy that's like, oh man, I could have had the other brother.
Well, sure. There's like a whole scene of her kind of realizing or coming to terms with her feelings about him and talking to Gabe about it. But that realization sort of comes in conflict with what Gabe tells her about their connection, that Gabe is basically hidden for their entire marriage about this connection between him and his brother. And she kind of, she feels betrayed by, him wanting to rush into marriage as being a way to like keep her from Mike, from any chance that Mike might have taken her from him, that he felt like once they were married, there would be no chance of like Wendy choosing Mike over him. So there wasn't really time for what you're talking about. She has that moment, and then as she's talking to Gabe about it, right? She's like, the right thing to do is to talk to my husband about these feelings that I'm having. And then finds out like the whole reason these feelings are a thing, and that it's because Gabe has literally hidden it from her. And so then she's got to deal with the fact that Gabe has this like huge insecurity about their relationship, and but then she has to go use a bazooka, and so they can't really talk about it anymore. But that
You're
carries
like, pause,
over,
honey.
That carries over into book
I
five.
gotta blow stuff up.
You see what happens as a result of that. their marriage just basically implodes in book 5. So
does Gabe get a pass at all? I mean, it seems like history has said that if he doesn't do things the way that he's done, then right? Hasn't he always lost the girl? I mean, like literally.
yeah, I mean, well, except for one, but you'll find out later. You'll find out later.
Dun dun dun.
He loses that one in a different way. So you have to read the books. Read the book.
Okay, so the claim has always been how realistic everything is in the series. Did you struggle with how fantastical the world becomes in? Like, how easy was it to come up with the guild? Man, they seem to do things like, is your history with Star Trek factor in at all to what
I
is?
don't think there's a ton of fantastical stuff in Shadoworld. I definitely, they have what's most fantastical is their way of life, their culture, and that's the thing that gives them the edge, and that's what you learn through the series. You know, that it's not this group of people who can, you know, create flames out of nowhere or like laser beam eyes or whatever. It's really just a group of people that has perfected the process of using gifts complementary to each other, of pairing people together who will be able to do more than a person would be able to do by themselves. So it's that, yes, they recognize, yes, these people have talents, they have gifts. How can we utilize that? How can we make those gifts, how can those gifts help people?
So is there any intersection with you in terms of how you see marriage and how you write the guild, or how you see your religion and how you write the guild?
Definitely religion, because the guild is sort of this, definitely in Shadoworld, like kind of a villain, but at the same time sort of like, but what are they about? But what do they want? Like, is their process good or bad for humanity, right? Is it helpful or harmful? Is it doing more harm than good? Because there is a cost to what they're doing. You know, they have, they basically take advantage of these people who've had hypnotouch, right? And they take their reproductive cells and create new babies with them, because the babies will be born with gifts, but not any of the dangers of hypnotouch. And they're usually more powerful gifts than what you would see from hypnotouch. So they do take advantage of that already existing system, right? They aren't themselves doing hypnotouch, which you find out later, but they definitely take advantage of the situation, of different situations of
like take advantage in a good way or take advantage in a bad way?
Well, that's the question. Is it good? Is it bad? Should you even, you know?
Well, we talked earlier about Louise being willing to do things that other people weren't.
Yeah.
That move the plan forward, move the world forward.
Well, but that's how bad things can move the plan forward. So do you just wash your hands of it or walk away, or do you see what's happening and say, I can't stop this from happening, but I can do something with the fruits of that thing. I can turn it around a little bit and make it benefit people. So the guild does have they do have, you know, some you have some questions, like, is this really a good thing or not?
And are you as up in the air about the guild as you are? Like, is the guild completely unresolved for you in Shadoworld? Like, how much?
I would say it was unresolved in Shadoworld. Yeah, I wasn't really sure if they were gonna ultimately be a bad guy or a good guy. I definitely at that point wasn't sure, and probably not even until Dreamworld, really, or not until Dreamworld was I really sure who they were, whether they just seemed a little shady.
How hard was it for you for the world to get so much bigger in the fourth book? I mean, you really go from the four, Gabe, Wendy, Ezra, Kaylin, and the world just opens up so big in Shadoworld. How was it? Did you feel it in the writing? Did the process feel differently than the other three books?
Shadoworld was relatively easy to write because it was still pretty limited. Interestingly, what we find out later is the guild that we think we know in Shadoworld is not actually the guild. It's an impersonator of the guild, essentially. A fragment, if you will, splinter group, if you will.
The radical.
Yeah, and you don't really know that because, to them they're like, we're the guild, right? But in reality, they're not the guild later on. So,
did you intentionally do that?
No.
Really?
No.
So
I just made sure that when I described the guild, I kept it so small. I had to leave myself room, right? So I didn't it's kind of like with Robert, where it's like I gave as little information as possible while still enough to be satisfied. So I gave as little information as possible about the guild while still enough to be satisfied with the story. But then later to go back and, because like I said, I wasn't really sure whether I trusted the guild or not. So I couldn't reveal all these things or say all these things that happened or that they did or that they said if I wasn't even sure whether they were a good guy or a bad guy yet.
And you didn't want to write yourself into a corner, so you were as ambiguous as possible.
Yeah.
Oh man. How do you check yourself on that? How do you know when you've hit a wall? Like if you're in a box and you're essentially writing in the dark and you don't know where the edge of the box is or how big a part of the box you're wandering around in. How do you accomplish that without knowing? Like, is there a series of questions that you ask yourself and you're like, okay, I'm safe to keep down this? How do you know?
Safe.
Wow.
I don't know.
Right?
Like, all I knew is I had to have a bad guy, but I didn't know if the guild was that bad guy. There had to be a bad guy, and I wasn't sure the guild was it yet.
But for Shadoworld, it did its job.
Yeah, because it's kind of the same thing with Teleworld. We think the whole time that it's Robert, right?
I mean, maybe you did. I don't remember ever being under the impression that Robert was the villain of Teleworld, ever.
Even when they found the files in his office and they were very incriminating.
Okay, he's aware of things. I'm aware of tons of stuff. Doesn't make me a super villain.
Okay, well, but and this after the fact that he supposedly told them everything that he knew.
Well, sure, yeah, but that's okay. Again, it's like Jim Cramer.
If somebody withholds the truth, that's the first sign that maybe something's not quite right.
No, look, if somebody calls Mad Money and asks Jim Cramer about a company, he's going to answer their question, but he's not going to tell you everything.
You only say that because you know who Robert is, but if you don't know, then you're going to wonder. You'd be like, this person, should be the number one person. Be like, if someone's not being completely honest with me, throw them out with garbage.
No. Oh my gosh, no. I would have been thrown out 20 times a year, and I know way more. Somebody asks me a question, you'll blow their brain up. You can't,
but Wendy's 19, dude.
Right, which is why Robert doesn't blow her brain up.
Yes, which is also why she wouldn't, things are black and white to her.
Okay, but I'm the reader, and I'm older than Wendy, and I didn't fall for it.
But I'm saying Wendy. Oh my God.
You said, how are you so confident? I'm telling you why I was confident.
All right. Well, there had to be a bad guy. Wasn't sure if the guild was going to be it. I had to write the story. They had to reveal something. There had to be some mystery. And I knew there was going to be another book. I wasn't sure what was going to be in it, so I wrote what I wrote.
Are you ever tempted to tell the guild story? Like that seems like
you do get some of the guild story like through the book.
But that's a whole rabbit hole.
And in Sarah Rowan, the next book,
dun, dun, dun.
You should definitely get some of that. Maybe.
What?
Maybe I won't. I don't know. It's supposed to be going back. Sarah Rowan does anybody know who Sarah Rowan is?
Dun, dun, dun.
You should know. She's been mentioned before.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sarah Rowan is Wendy's adopted mother.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's her history.
I'm excited. Do you ever feel like your life was not going to be long enough to tell this whole story?
What kind of question is like I'm gonna die before I get to read?
I mean, because you haven't just written a story in the world that we know. You've said yes, but right? There are things that people can do that are supernatural, essentially in nature, but this world is these people that we know and love, but it's also bigger.
I hope at the end of the story that there is going to be some like wondering. I don't know that I intend to tie up every last end. There's
no way that you could.
You know, I hope that there will be. I think a good story always has a little bit of open-endedness to it. That's kind of one of my beefs with another very popular series, which we won't mention because we mention it every other week. Is that sometimes things are just too neat, and that's really not life. You might have a lot of resolutions and a lot of like tying things together, but you're never going to have everything. You're never going to know what things you do are intended for future generations or future stories, like how your actions tie into other people. Just kind of the point of Waterworld is seeing how those things come together. But even if you see how 6 people's stories come together, it's still not every story. It's still not every person
right
on the planet. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, now that you've introduced the guild, you theoretically could go back all the way to the beginning of the foundation of the guild.
Yeah, you could.
And then you could say, well, what happened in these people's lives that led to them forming something such as the guild?
Yeah.
Like, you could keep hitting the rewind button and making, I don't know, it just, to me, it seems like you've almost...
Yeah, I mean, you could, although I don't know how much I would enjoy that. Knowing what the ending is, like, part of the writing process that's so cool is not knowing what the ending is. But in this case, I would be writing essentially knowing what the ending is.
But I thought you don't care about spoilers.
Maybe. In some cases, I don't. With other people's stories, I don't care. But my writing, I don't want to know what the ending is. That's why I don't plan.
And you're saying all of it, like you can connect to history. It's, to me, you've made the world so big and so possible that you can't possibly know what's hiding in every corner.
No. I mean, there might be something interesting there. There might be. We'll see.
Okay,
Plus, there's a whole other world out there, so you could tell a story of like, some other place.
Well, I still don't even know how much of the world you've like. I still get the feeling that this is a North American feeling story.
Well, yeah, I mean, I live in North America. I can't really write from Ethiopian perspective.
But that's what I'm saying.
Or, Brazil.
But yet the characters in the book are not all American in origin.
Right.
So that means to me that you're like one step away from just...
Ooh, lots of research. So much research if you write from perspective of someone in a place that you know nothing about. Oh.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you don't ever get to the point where you're like...
Now, see, in that case, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to have time to write all that.
Okay. That was my question.
It's just the...
Are you going to die before this is even possible?
Yeah. But, not before the series is done, but maybe all of the, like, side stories, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked for like a writing like heir?
Oh, well.
Okay. Have you ever thought about Nobin's ability to carry on something in the world?
Well, I worry about anybody's ability just because there's so many unspoken things, unwritten things, ideas in my head that I haven't actually
Just wiped your shoes off.
Wow, seriously?
No, I shoved it aside.
No, you didn't. You were standing on it just 2 seconds ago.
All right, yeah.
6 children.
Teenagers.
Super easy to be a parent of 6 kids. We're pros. It's like you're writing. You just sit down, you don't know what you're doing.
I don't, in any case.
Yeah, just try to get to the end of the story. Put them all to bed, and then you've won for another day. Yeah.
See, that's part of the montage.
Speed bump. Nighttime is a speed bump to life.
Yeah.
Thank heavens we sleep at night,
I
right?
know, right?
Don't you feel like life would just be too much if you
It
couldn't?
would be. It really would be.
I bet that's why we sleep.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, we just figured out the secret to the universe. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Okay. So we really don't know. We only have Guild Light or Guild Alt in Shadoworld. But is there any influence? Like, what gives you the limits to the technology that's able to be used in Shadoworld or the guild
Well,
in
I
general?
wanted it to be kind of out there, but not so far beyond possibility. One of the things I researched was in Luma World when Wendy gets the glucose. I don't know what it's called.
Oh.
Tests her glucose and it goes in her eye. That's like a real technology that's being developed.
Oh, really?
But cool thing is I wrote about this apartment. Wendy sees this apartment, and in one of the apartments there's like this induction technology stove that basically heats the pot without creating any heat outside of the pot. And then I realized after I wrote it that it's a real thing. I have one in my house now. So
Wait, you're talking about the induction stove?
Induction stove. Like I literally wrote this imaginary technology, induction technology,
that
and then realized a few years later that it actually had been developed and now existed. So that was kind of a cool thing.
How old is the idea of an induction?
I don't know. I know that I didn't. I feel like I looked it up, but I don't remember seeing there being any real actual thing in existence.
Was it weird to you? Did you kind of like have a moment when you?
Yeah, I did. I was like, because until we moved here and we had that stove, I had no idea that it even existed.
Really?
Yeah, and then once I realized it was an induction stove, I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote about this in my book.
That had to be like a moment where you realize like this is the place.
Yeah, now if we can just have the whole like waterless cleaning system that they have in the books, which I think is super cool. It uses like air. It's kind of like in the bathrooms where they use the air jets to dry your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it uses that sort of thing.
What's it?
They're cleaning things. They clean things without water.
So like dishwasher,
showers, washer and dryer, washers.
Oh, you totally could do it with a shower if you had just a the original version of the oh my gosh, what's my favorite hand dryer? I want to do commercials. What?
Dyson?
No. The Airblade is. I mean, it looks fancy and it sounds, but no. It's the really good one.
You're talking about whatever.
But
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You could essentially have eight of those or something like that, and if they like went up and down, you could totally like clean you without.
The other thing they develop that you find out about is they have their appliances are all intended to be fixed, not discarded. So everything has interchangeable parts. It's very easy to fix things because they've developed the technology for their appliances that way. And then probably the most outrageous, which I don't think is actually all that outrageous, is water memory, which is actually a scientific thing that they're studying. But in the guild, they use it in their technology, like their tablets and things. So, but you don't find that out until later. But that's another piece of technology that's, I would say, in my opinion, probably the most out there.
So what are your rules in terms of what intrigued you about telling the story of the guild? Because obviously this technology, you're having to think about, well, what am I going to show off? What am I going to tell the story of?
Well, I just had to have something that would impress Wendy enough to realize, to have her think like, oh, they can help me with my son. Right? Because her son, Robbie, has a Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and he's going to die before he's whatever age.
Hey, Christy, welcome in.
So she has to
Supernatural
feel like these people can actually help her, and then be willing to do it as they're asking in exchange for.
So that was your. Hey, what's up, Joseph?
Yeah, so it's like something to impress her enough. So
I got it. Star Trek level technology.
Things that I thought about including was like, nuclear computing, but I was like, those things are not really something that someone reading the book would understand easily. Like they wouldn't understand like how cool it is. So I had to write something that was more like everyday. Well, I have a computer science degree.
And so you're like nuclear computing.
And I know
easy.
How quantum, using quantum computing is like actually being developed now. So you can't so I just I had to pick things that everyday people would recognize. Oh, that's new, but not like I have no idea what you're talking about. You could be, it's like when you watch Star Trek, they're like the deflector shields are beam me up, Scotty, and
what?
Like the quantum beam photon, blah blah blah. Like, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, technology.
So you did or didn't want to do like?
I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be like, I get that this could be real. This isn't so far from what I currently know.
So then, is your love for Star Trek like nostalgic in nature, or what did you have that?
I don't really know that I cared about the story more than space. I'm not really into space, actually. Yeah. Really, like, not into space.
Yep.
Don't care about space. So, the cool thing about Star Trek is everything mostly happens like on the ship.
True.
They try to keep everything on the ship. Very rarely do they go visit planet, probably for budgeting reasons, but everything really happens
it was way cheaper
on the ship, and it's like relationships and like data and like Counselor Troy and like all those guys. Like that was what was intriguing to me about Star Trek. Which is why I don't like Star Wars, because it happens off the ship.
Oh no, they left the ship.
Yeah, because when they leave the ship, somebody dies, right? In Star Trek.
Yes, the away team.
The away team.
Oh, the away team, and those red blood-covered shirts.
Yeah.
Did you read a ton of sci-fi growing up? I mean, No.
I didn't like sci-fi.
So how did you end up so? I mean, I would definitely think
I don't consider it sci-fi. It's so low-key sci-fi. Like it's so just sort of, oh, by the way, sci-fi. Like it's
the way. They can do these things that we're not there yet.
Yeah, like again, I didn't write it to be a sci-fi thing. I just wrote it. We need to know these people exist. We need to know they're capable of technology that the rest of the world doesn't have, and it needs to be believable. So it was never about the technology. I find writing those parts like super boring. So
interesting. Yeah. Well, you sure hit a broad demographic for some. Okay. So in your mind, like that's the short version of you should trust these people who can do this. You're like, these people are far beyond you. Okay, I trust you.
Well, at least not trusting. Wendy never trusts them, but she does at least believe that there's a possibility
that what they're claiming could be real.
Yeah. In fact, they also inject her with this serum in order to like stave off her diabetes for 2 weeks. So she.
Isn't that to show her though?
Yeah, that's also to show her that they have medical advancements that the rest of the world doesn't have, which really convinces her, about their ability to help Robbie. So,
is that any sort of critique on healthcare, current healthcare? This idea that somebody has it, but they're not going to give it to you?
No.
No? Okay. I don't know how much is going on underneath the surface.
No.
How much of your so when you're researching, are there rules that you have for like what I would imagine there's so much out there on the internet. How do you make your decisions in terms of how do you find your sources and where you go to?
What do you mean? Say that in a different way.
So you're writing about things. Okay. You're writing about things that don't really exist yet. This is the new frontier. Like where do you go to learn about nuclear computing and
quantum computing?
Yeah.
I just well, some of those things I just knew. I just knew about them. And honestly, I just thought about it. I just like thought like, okay, what do we have now? And what would be really cool if we did have? Like, what were some improvements that would be?
Do you have a wish list somewhere?
No.
No.
Maybe there might be a notebook somewhere that has like ideas. I'm not sure. Okay, dude.
Nope. Back to sitting.
Well, I'm gonna try to bounce him on the
Oh.
ground. He just wants to look at me. Like,
He's definitely ready to do something else.
okay.
What do you need?
He might want this.
Oh.
He's a fickle creature.
All right. Let me get here. Try to ignore the fact that the oldest kid literally stepped on it with his wet feet. All right. It's very, very poncho. All right.
All right. What else you got?
How do you know that? There we go. Oh, but now you're covered up there. How do you know that like this is Robert's time? How do you?
He's too powerful.
So you basically have been concerned about what to do with Robert from the beginning?
Not from the beginning, but as his powers became apparent and his sort of reach became apparent, I was like, he's gonna start to make things a little too easy.
Oh man, do you think that the X-Men universe has the same thing with Xavier? Do you think that they're
I
constant?
never felt that way.
You never felt that Xavier was as powerful?
Yeah, no.
I didn't either until the movies. I feel like the movies, they really just, he seems like such a big deal in the movies, whereas I never got that impression from the comic books. He was always like the old guy that's like, you guys go save the
Well,
world.
that's because in movies and TV shows, they always have to like be more powerful and then more powerful, and then they have to keep upping their ante. Like they have to keep getting more powerful.
Oh, so you're saying that the Xavier in the comics just wasn't good enough for television?
Yeah. Kind of like think of Dragon Ball Z. They're like,
Oh,
how can we make this more powerful than they've already been?
scream louder.
We've said
Change
that
the hair color.
this is as powerful as you can get, and so you seek after that, and then once you get there, you're like, but wait, there's more.
But wait, you can be even more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest beef with Dragon Ball Z. The fact that anybody cares about power, period.
Yeah. And I definitely don't want the story to be, I don't want the story to be about powerful characters. So part of the reason that, Kaylin also needs to be
dealt with.
Well, she has to be tragically flawed because otherwise she's too much. She's too powerful. And so if she's going to be that powerful, she's got to be.
What does keep her in check so far?
Well, so far her family, I would say.
You mean her family, like her new Gabe Wendy adopted family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like, I don't know, I thought about over the years, well, what if I was invisible? I could just sneak into the bank, grab a bunch of money, and ride off into the sunset and stop working so hard. You never thought about that?
No.
Some days I'm like, oh, Lee, this is just, if I just had $1 million, man, so much easier. Like there's enough problems to add, like, oh, I have to work all day. It's just such an extra. There's some things I really want to do with my life, but I'm putting things in packaging and shipping it. Oh man, it's hard to save the world when you're trying to like pay the mortgage.
Yeah, but humility, Humility. There was like, okay, so sidebar. I was researching something. I don't remember what it was, but I came across Cincinnatus, who was apparently what Cincinnati was named after.
Clearly, greatest city in America.
So in Rome, they had the Senate, and then in times of war, they would appoint a dictator for 6-month intervals.
Whoa!
So they'd call somebody up from their public. They call them up from do public service as the dictator.
As the dictator.
As soon as the war was over, right? Then they would be released from service. Well, Cincinnatus was called up Like literally, they went and found him in his field while he's plowing his field.
They're like, hey,
They're like, hey,
you.
we need you. And
dictator for 6 months.
No, it was like 4 days.
Oh, 4
So
days.
he like whoops up on some people and then goes back to his plow like the next 4 days later. So he's kind of a legend in Roman history.
Like
so-
he's a real person?
Yeah.
And when you say he whips up on people for 4, like
Well,
like
he
literally they're
basically-
like, you be in
yeah,
charge.
Yeah, he gathers the armies together
And he
goes
wins
after these rebels
and ends the war in 4 days.
Yeah, like it's really shouted up as 4 days, but it's less than a week. I know that.
In less than a week, Cincinnati. Oh man, I knew I loved Cincinnati.
I know. I was like, if I tell,
You're like, I
Brandon,
can never tell.
But now I hate it a little bit less. So it's cool that they named after this humble guy who, basically he had all this power for a hot minute.
Did he get paid anything?
I don't think so. But he was kind of wealthy in his own right. He plowed his own field.
I mean, if you're a landowner, well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like, I don't know that I would stop working. I would just not feel the need to. Like, there's some days where you're like, oh, if I stop, it's all gonna come crashing down. Days like yesterday, where you're like, man, it'd be really nice to have had 4 more people to do this thing that we accomplished. You think about like what I had in my to-do list for Monday, and then like what I did do with my Monday, and then you were like, what time did you get to bed? I'm like, yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's my thinking with character. Like with Robert, it was like Wendy's gonna keep coming to him for help, right?
Oh, Robert.
Fix my problem. Tell me what to do.
But does he? I feel like, isn't he always like, I'm going to teach you how to fish?
Well, he doesn't, but that, that whole like Robert the Sage kind of, the story's been told. Also, the secret of the mystery of discovery, of finding out, of learning Robert's legacy after he's dead was appealing to me. Of finding out, who is this guy? What has he been doing all this time? He's obviously this great, powerful person. He can't have just come into the story. This can't be his debut. So being able to find out those things after he's gone is one of the fun things.
You say you don't like Star Wars, but he's Obi-Wan.
Let's see, Obi-Wan.
Yes, he's like a Force ghost. Like, Robert lives on for Wendy even after. He's just a Force ghost.
I don't know what a Force ghost is.
It's a dead person who still gives good advice. I feel like Robert is just a Force ghost. He doesn't really die. He's like, oh yeah, kill me, and I will be even more powerful in my death.
Well, I mean, admittedly, Robert is the God archetype in my books. So I wrote him to be God. So,
dun, dun, dun.
And you can only live with God. Like, God's going to help you. But you got to do some stuff yourself. And if God's sitting in the room with you, then things are a lot easier. So if God is not in the room with you, then you have to kind of like, when he dies, when he's ready, she's got to start figuring things out and having confidence and all that jazz.
And then the Force ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So are you at this point, are you going to keep Kaylin around and then just tragic flaw her, or are you looking around the corner for her exit?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not just saying that. I legitimately.
Have you sat down to write Sarah Rowan?
I wrote a little bit. Very small, but Kaylin doesn't have anything with Sarah Rowan.
So she's safe for now.
Yeah, certainly this book we're not going to see anything happen to Kaylin because this is, this is 20 years in the past.
Yeah, so she doesn't even exist. She's too young to even exist at that stage.
Yeah.
Okay. Is going back open up, like, does it simplify your life? Because it's like so easy to see the implications of what happens, or how is it easier or harder to go back that far now that you're?
It's easier because now I don't have to worry that I'm gonna like write over myself. I'm not gonna like step on my own feet.
Now, it also seems like you now have the opportunity to go back and figure out why you did some of the things you did.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right? You get to see where things started.
Yeah. Well, and we get to see Robert again.
Robert's back.
Young Robert. We get to see 20 years younger Robert, which is great. So.
Are you excited to see what the implications of? I would think that book 7. There are some things that are going to come up in Sarah Rowan that will be helpful.
Oh, for sure. I don't know what they are yet.
Right. Are you excited about that?
Yeah. I'm excited to write Sarah Rowan. Get to see Robert. Get to go back in the future.
You're really looking forward to Robert.
The world is kind of formed at this point, so I don't have to develop as much. I mean, I say that, but I'm probably gonna be totally wrong. Because Sarah Rowan does not belong to the guild. She belongs to something else. So dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Oh, sorry. I missed it. I was like, oh, what is she gonna say?
Yeah, and so we learn about that. That's kind of, and so I do have to kind of develop something from scratch there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was really interested in. We're not there yet. Charlotte was really interesting to me in terms of going back. You're going forward, but you go forward to learn history. I think for a lot of people, that's what really was spectacular about Charlotte, is how much we were surprised by things that had been set in motion much earlier. So I think that people will really dig Sarah Rowan for the same reason. That idea that, I mean, people like to go back.
Well, yeah, origin stories are a thing.
Yeah, they are. All right. So do you see this? It would have to be, right, an origin story of whatever this group is that you're referring to.
Well, it's not really an origin story for them, but it is learning who they are.
Okay.
And what is their role in the story? Our story, our current story.
Okay.
But they're an organization that's older than the guild, much older. So
oh man,
get to learn. Yeah.
That's a lot of cans of worms.
Yeah.
What was your favorite? What is your favorite part? Has it changed over the years? What do you love about Shadoworld?
I definitely loved writing Mike.
Oh, really?
Being a jerk. I really did.
What did you like so much about writing the jerk?
I think there was just this tension that was created that basically is through all of the interactions, through the whole story of Mike and Wendy. There's just a tension there that makes it riveting, I guess. There isn't really downtime in Shadoworld like there is in some of the other books.
Did you enjoy that pace?
Yeah, I did. I enjoy faster pace. I only add things just because I don't want to emotionally exhaust. I can't think of particular scenes that yeah, I mean, these were probably my most favorite action scenes that I've written. I enjoyed writing the action scenes in Shadoworld over other books.
What made
maybe because Mike's just such a badass and he's always doing crazy things with his body, and you're like, that was cool. It's like Jackie Chan up in here, he's. In fact, Wendy calls him the Mexican Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It's cool to have an OP character who's OP because of his physical body, not because of some
he doesn't have a power.
Superpower.
He
does have a power, and he kind of begins to learn what exactly his power is, because he admits in the beginning, he's like, yeah, I don't really know how it works or really what it is, and then Wendy sort of figures out how it works.
So does the guild know that they're using him in the way that they are, or does he think that he's hired muscle?
So
Short.
he's kind of got, he doesn't realize, because he's basically undercover the whole time. He's never like going back. He doesn't really realize who he's actually been working for all this time. Not until later. So when he's trying to like get Wendy, he doesn't realize that he's not actually getting Wendy for the guild. He's getting Wendy for someone else.
But do they know? I mean, it seems to reason that they know what they're getting Mike for, and he doesn't know. He just sees himself as hired muscle.
Well, yeah. What do you mean they getting Mike for?
Okay, so like Mike might be amazing, and Mike might be a beefcake. But what's more amazing about Mike is what he can do.
Oh, well, they know that, but they also know that Mike isn't. He hasn't fully developed what he's able to do. You know, Mike came into the guild older, whereas a lot of people grew up in the guild, and so they've been exposed to this culture of, you know, you have a superpower, you should develop your superpower. And Mike just kind of came into it knowing he could do something. He's not really sure what it is. And for him, developing himself physically is so much easier. So it may be that Mike has, you know, developed himself physically because he feels like he doesn't know what he's doing with his ability.
So he's
And
like,
it's easier to be useful as like a machine than it is to be useful as someone who can move.
so does he believe them?
Does he believe them?
Does he believe that he has an ability? Like,
Yeah, he does.
okay,
Yeah. He's just like, yeah, I make things happen. That's his description of it.
that's his ability.
Yeah, I make things happen. I will things and they happen.
Huh.
I don't know how they happen, but they happen somehow. He concentrates on them, so he's not sure how to like hone that. And
So then, is his physical ability or his physical prowess actually the result of his ability?
yeah, he does talk about that a little bit in the book. That his ability to will people to do things and influence people allows him to have the upper hand in like a hand-to-hand combat type situation.
Oh, I mean more so that like he essentially used his power on himself to look the way that he does.
No, he can't like will like physical changes. He can.
No, I'm saying like okay. All these notifications now. Oh my gosh. Luis, welcome in. Jennifer, welcome in. Kathy, welcome in. Okay. I would, meaning like, can he give himself willpower that other, you know, like a lot of working out is just like being dedicated to doing it. Does he?
Oh, like the focus on it? It's a good question. You should ask Mike.
Because it seems like he's really quite the specimen.
Yeah.
Right? And so it seems like he could cheat a little and kind of will his way toward.
Well, remember, he's always kind of been in this competition with Gabe because he's just like connected to him. Can't get away from him. Gabe is this intellectual, like.
So he just takes the
brainwashed.
other
So
end of the
Mike's
spectrum?
I'm going to be this other guy. I'm going to be
He's like, fine.
Mr. Muscle, Mr.
You got the
physical
brains.
prowess. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for joining us. This is kind of the last, because the next Book Talk Tuesday, the newest book will be out. So this is we're going to keep having Book Talk Tuesday until we get all the way to the new book. But next week, this will be available on the 14th, on Valentine's Day. If you're going to go to Anime Milwaukee or Ohoyacon, we're going to give an early release for those folks that want to come and pick up this book. It'll be available this coming weekend. Otherwise, go hit the intranet, go to colorworldbooks.com, and you can snag a copy of Soraya right now. I'm excited to dive in. It's kind of like fairy tale for me. I'm always glad that there's more to the series. I never watch all the episodes that are available for Fairy Tale because I always want there to be Fairy Tale. So I think part of my motivation is to make sure that Rachel really never tells the whole story, so there can just always be more. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll leave the stuff in the shop for you to pick up books afterwards. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central to 7 p.m. Central on PopShop Live. Oh, whoops. And then, John, I have not seen Tokyo Revengers. I don't know where to watch it. It's super new, but I'm getting asked about it all over the place, kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen, which is a Crunchyroll anime for sure. But I know that people really like it, and I know it has blown up really big. So I'm sure at some point I'll be introduced to it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you again next Tuesday.